Gabriel House is a home that my wife and I established 23 years ago, give or take a few months. We were looking for a place where we could make a difference. I retired from the military and finished Bible school, and we came to Mexico. And we just felt like we were called to come to Mexico. And when we got here, Renie had an idea of what she was going to do. I had no idea what I was going to do. I just kind of came along for the ride because I had never done anything with handicapped children in my life at all, ever. And she, as a nurse, had of course run into a few of them a number of times. So she knew what she wanted to do when she came down here, and that was to work with a group of kids that couldn't help themselves. And so it took her a while, and finally she talked me into letting her bring one home permanently, semi-permanently, 11 years. And that was Pancha. And then we were off and running. We had one, and the two of us looked after the kids until we went past 4, and then we hired a lady to help us. And then about every 4 kids we would hire another person. And now we've gotten almost as many employees as we do children, because we work around the clock with our staff over there. It's 24-hour a day care, 7 days a week. Gabriel is the first child who really didn't have any place to go or be. We found him living in a converted outhouse. They made a cage out of it because he kept wandering off. His family didn't hate him. They just were overwhelmed with him. They didn't know what to do with him. They were goat herders. Their salary was around $70 a week. Well, his Tegretol was $35 a bottle, and he needed 2 bottles of Tegretol a week. So you can do the math and figure out what didn't happen. Because if they bought his medicine, they starved. So they didn't buy his medicine. And he would go from one seizure to another seizure. He'd have 2 or 3 good days, but then he'd have 2 or 3 bad days. So my wife just brought him down, and I says, honey, what in the world have you done? And she said, just come with me. So she took me back up there on the mountain where she found him, and she showed me it was about the top half of an outhouse was what it was that they had him locked in. It was about 3.5 feet tall, maybe 4 feet tall. The Watkins people are short anyway, so it wasn't a very tall building. And then they had boarded it up and secured the door so that they could keep him in it. And you open it up and looked in there was a dog bowl laying on the ground. It looked like, a bowl. It wasn't specifically a dog bowl, but it looked like an animal had been fed in there. And that was how they fed him. While they went away to herd the goats, they put him in that box with food and water, and he had to take care of himself, and he doesn't do that very good job of that. So Mama just decided that he couldn't stay there, and when I got up there and saw it, I decided he couldn't stay there either. So his name was Gabriel. So that'll give you an idea of how the house got its name. Well, there's a huge variety of different things that the children are afflicted with over there. We have, let's see, we've just got 2 new babies that have got Down syndrome, and we had 3, and then one went home to be with his family. So we've now got 4 Down syndrome children. We've got 2 children with AIDS. We have a lot of children that have cerebral palsy and muscular dystrophy. Some of them have just never been diagnosed.
It's giving you more.
They told me to do it over here.
Gabriel, we don't even know for sure all of the things that are wrong with him. We do know that there's something growing in his brain that's going to eventually cause part of his body to shut down that he can't live without. And then he'll be going to be with the Lord. The good thing about it is when that happens to these children is we know they get to go up there with a perfect body. So they're not going up there with these ugly things that are going on in their bodies with these kids here today. When they go to be with Jesus, they're going up with perfect bodies. And I just can't imagine the day when I get to walk through the gates and see these kids. It will be awesome. It will be awesome. I don't know if my heart can stand it. If I didn't have a perfect one when I get there, it'd probably be a problem.
Y no sé dónde estuviera si yo a ti no te tuviera, si no hubiera conocido al Dios que me ama. Dios manda lluvia, dígaselo iglesia, pueblo de Dios, derrama de
I had a visiting pastor once, about 10 years ago. He and I were over there at the house when Mom and I were still really active over there before I got so weak in the legs. My legs are so weak now that I have trouble tripping over the kids, so I don't get over there because I'm afraid of falling on them. So I don't spend much time over there now, but I used to. And we were sitting over there on the front porch, Miss Pastor and I, and he turned to me and he says, Brother Ted, he says, do these kids understand? Do they get it? Do they know who Jesus is? And I looked at him and I smiled and they had the kids out in the front yard. And I hollered at Ellie, who's one of the kids that has a normal mind, but the muscles just won't work at all for her. She's our painter now. She has one arm that works and one head, and she's painting over there. And if you haven't seen some of her painting, you should. It's really something. And I said, Ellie, I said, where's Jesus live? And she started to move her arm, the only one she has that works. It moves real slow, but she moves it. And she started to move it, and she got it about halfway to her heart, and the brother that was sitting alongside of me started crying, and he said, she knows, doesn't she? And I said, yeah, she knows where Jesus is. I says, the ones that can understand know. There's a lot of them that don't have the capacity to know. But those ones have already got their glory ticket punched. They're already on the train. They're going to be to heaven no matter what, because they didn't have a choice. We have so many miracles that have happened down here. Just unexplainable things that it's just only God. Little Peely, which is one of our Down syndrome children that lives over there. Her name is Pilar. She came out of Mexicali. And she came to us when she was 4 days or 5 days old, out of the hospital. And she was doing okay. She was starting to put on weight, and she was getting strength. But she was diagnosed with a hole in her heart. And about 30% of Down syndrome children are born that way. And they have to have a little surgery where the doctors go in and just close a hole in that heart. And then they can have a normal life like most Down syndrome kids can. And so one day, about 2 days or 3 days after we got Peely, of course, every child that comes in, Mom and I go over and we put oil on them and we pray for them. And then it's just up to God what happens. And I was taking Jose, one of the bigger boys, over, whose feet are twisted. We were taking him over because we'd heard there was a doctor specialist for bones that was visiting from the United States over in Chapultepec in a hospital. So we had an appointment to take him over there. So Mom said, well, you know what? Maybe they sent a cardiologist down with that specialist. Why don't you just bundle Peely up and go and make an appointment for her to have the hole in her heart closed? So I bundled up little Peely and put her in a car carrier, and away we went. And so I got to the hospital, and I had taken one of the ladies with me from that work with us, and she wheeled Jose over to the orthopedic doctor specialist. And I took the baby Peely's car seat and carried her and went down the hallway. And sure enough, there was a cardiologist that had come with the other doctors that was there. And the hospital had the ability to take the pictures of the heart. And but I had some pictures of her heart from Mexicali, from the hospital. And so I went into his office to talk to him, and I said, I'd like to schedule an appointment to have this hole in the baby's heart closed. And he said, we can do that. He said, but why don't you let me just take my own pictures so I'm just a lot more comfortable using my own pictures. So I said, sure. And so he took her, laid her out on a table, put the machine all over the top of her, and went into the doctor and took the same pictures over again 4 days later. In about 10 minutes, he come out of the back of that room, and he was scratching his head, and he said, where did you get those pictures that you've got of this baby's heart? And I said, well, the Child Protective Services sent those pictures with her when they brought her to us 2 days ago from Mexicali, from the hospital. Those pictures were taken at the Mexican General Hospital in Mexicali. And the doctor said, doesn't look like the same heart, come here. And he laid his pictures out on his desk and the Mexicali pictures out on his desk, I could plainly, without any being expert at all, I could plainly see the hole in the pictures that were in the film from Mexicali. There was no hole in her heart in the pictures he took. In that 2 days that we had Peely, and we put oil on her and prayed for her, God miraculously just closed the hole in her heart. No scar tissue, no nothing shows up on the pictures. He just fixed it.